As I speak here, Earth Hour is rolling across the planet. It's already happened in Fiji. Lights have gone up there. And as I speak, lights are going off across Asia. More than 1,500 cities in the Philippines, with events going on there, across China. Going over to Africa, the Middle East, Europe, the Acropolis. Going across the Atlantic to the US, Las Vegas, and finally ending later at the end of today in the small Cook Islands, far on the other side of this planet. But this event, and this is, I think, the largest mass event in the history of this planet, if we maybe don't count passive attendance before television sets at global football games. I think this is pretty clearly the largest mass event in the history of this planet. But it's important to say that it's not about just turning the lights off. I hope you can join me tonight in Sofia, in front of the National Theatre. There'll be an acoustic concert and various other things going on. There'll be events going on in more than 100 Bulgarian cities and towns. And again, it was more about just lights off. It started in 2007 in Australia, and now we have more than 152 countries. We have tens of thousands, more than 7,000 cities and towns participating, tens of thousands of companies, of organizations, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people participating in this mass event. But it's more than just turning off the lights. When we started this, it started as a symbolic event of bringing people together across this planet to show their commitment that they care about the future of this planet that we all share. The next step was to try to turn that inspiration into something beyond the hour, to take that action, that commitment, and take it beyond the hour. And I think now we're getting to the point where, and I think we're just feeling that we're getting into this, is how can we take that inspiration, going beyond the hour, and actually catalyze a global movement for change. When we started this in Sydney in 2007, in one city, the world was quite a bit different place. The issues of climate change still seemed quite distant. People knew about it, of course, but it was something that was in far-off islands that people worried about maybe coming in the future, but not up close. That's changed quite a lot in the last years. We've had raging forest fires, droughts, heat waves in Australia, huge smog problems in Beijing, for example. Just before the US elections, Hurricane Sandy turned the lights off on New York, not for Earth Hour, but because of extreme weather events, and affected tens of thousands of people with millions and millions of dollars in damage. In 2006, when we started this, Lord Nicholas Stern, who used to work for the World Bank, also for the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, was asked by the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK to give a sense of what does climate change mean in terms of economics. So he came out, his study came out in 2006, and he said climate change is the result of the greatest market failure the world has ever seen. We risk damages on a scale larger than the two worlds of the last century. Several weeks ago, he gave another talk in Davos at the World Economic Forum, and he said he was wrong. He got it really wrong. It's actually far, far worse. The assumption that he was going on is that we would have a climate change of 2 degrees. Now we're looking at something closer to 4 degrees. These are huge, big problems facing all of us, and it's not just about climate change. There's many others facing us. So the challenge for us was what can we do with this? I mean, they're so overwhelming that it's easy to just sink into apathy. What can I do as an individual? So we needed to do something and to touch lots of people. Not just thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. We had to go way beyond the usual environmental crowd. We had to touch people across the planet. So plug into not just thousands, but millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people. So we needed something compelling, simple, that we could actually tap people with. And that's where Earth Hour came in. Earth Hour was supposed to be about hope, not about fear, about taking positive action of taking action in our everyday lives. And the big advantage that we had with this is the digital revolution. We are the first generation that has within its power the possibility to actually connect across the world in a way we have never been able to do before. So huge global challenges, but also huge global possibilities. And Earth Hour has been very much about that. I want to tell you a couple stories about how this digital revolution and how Earth Hour has empowered people across the world, how it has brought them together and interlinked them and started to create what I would like to say is a global movement for change. One example is in Libya. Last year, Mohammed, the guy in the middle there, he got in touch with us and said, I wanted to organize Earth Hour last year, 2011, but I was in the rebel army fighting against Gaddafi, so it didn't quite work. We knew there was another guy who was doing a Facebook page for Earth Hour. He was over in Benghazi. We got the two of them together. His name was also Mohammed. And the two of them contacted the Scout movement. They got a bunch of companies involved, and they organized the first Earth Hour in Libya last year, in Benghazi and in Tripoli. And this year, there are now 5 cities participating, at least 5 cities that we know of at least, and events going on. And this is the spark to the first environmental movement in Libya since the revolution. In Swaziland, this guy here, Nati, he's a few years ago, this picture, he participated in some Earth Hour event, not much was going on, and he wrote an impassioned email to our colleagues at the Earth Hour team and said, I want to do something for Earth Hour. I want to get Swaziland on the Earth Hour map. What can I do? And we said, well, the usual thing, few individuals, big things, take it into your own hands, organize things. He did. He got 20 of his mates together, and they organized Earth Hour in 2011. And this year, 2013, he has the biggest media companies in the country behind it. He's got the mobile company behind it doing social networking services. He's also got the government behind it. So some inspiring, and this guy's at this point, I think, 17 or 18 years old. So inspiring and inspired individuals can really make a big difference. I mentioned that we started out with a symbolic event, and then we wanted to take the next phase to actually turn this into action. So this is what we did last year. We piloted I Will If You Will, basically a challenge, pushing people to challenge each other to kind of a dare, taking fun action to take action. And this is what was a pilot, has proved quite successful and is really taking off now. One example last year in Russia, where WWF Russia used Earth Hour and this I Will If You Will to gain important protection for marine areas. After the elections, Putin said, he made a rule that if you collect 100,000 signatures, then your issue or your cause will be discussed by the government and in parliament. So WWF Russia did this, and within 3 weeks they had 122,000 signatures. And last December, the Duma voted on this legislation. It passed. So something that WWF Russia had been working on for 7 years, trying to get through the parliament, was suddenly passed within 9 months. This is people power. This is what can actually happen. And for this year, they're taking it a step further, and they want to protect an area of forest twice the size of France. In Botswana, the former president has committed to planting 1 million trees. The first 100,000 will be planted in a place called Good Hope, a degraded landscape. Across the border in Romania, our colleagues have organized a city challenge, the Earth Hour Capital City. And last year, the town of Bistrica won through a whole series of waste collection and environmental awareness activities in biodiversity projects and so on and so forth. So they won this title of Earth Hour Capital. They're so proud of their distinction that they put signs at the front of at the beginning of the town. Oops. In the US, 35,000 Girl Scouts have changed 135,000 light bulbs. Not that much, perhaps, but that is the equivalent of planting 3,000 hectares of woodlands every year. So small changes can make big differences. In Germany this year, Earth Hour will be very much focused on the Energiewende, this commitment made by the government and by politicians across the board after the Fukushima nuclear power disaster in Japan, to turn off all of the country's nuclear power plants and to go for renewable energy, 100%. EU Commissioner Potocnik has promised to sing a song if 1,000 people leave their cars behind. And here in Bulgaria, Vera Petkancin, I hope I got the name right, has focused her dare to get you to sign a petition for the future of Pirin National Park. I don't know how much you're aware of this, but recently a decision by the Ministry of Environment called for the change of the management plan of the park, which would basically legalize illegal developments that have happened in the park and would open the park for further destruction. This is important not only for the future of the park, Pirin itself, but also all protected areas in Bulgaria. So she and many people with her are asking you to sign the petition. You can go on the website right there, wfcauses.com, search for Pirin. Sign that and send a strong signal to the Ministry of Environment, to the new Minister of Environment, and to the government that you do care about the future of this park, about the future of the natural resources of this country, how decisions are made about these natural resources in the future. It does make a difference. And I have to say, for me, great inspiration has come from what you have done here in Bulgaria. You have been going beyond the hour, consistently, amazingly, with incredible tenacity, thousands of people going onto the streets, on the internet, taking action in a very creative, funky, spunky way that has inspired lots of people across Europe. I was interviewed by a journalist yesterday, and they asked me, about all this economic problems and so on. People don't care about the environment anymore. Where do you get, some positive hope if given the fact that I'm working in the environment? And I said, just look at Bulgaria. It's amazing what is happening there. There's a lot of bad things going on, but there's a hell of a lot of hope in the streets, in the young people especially, on the internet, of action being taken. And I think it's important that this continues. You've already done a lot. You've already, last year, your tenacity led to stopping a very destructive law that would have gone through, that would have meant destruction of forest areas and protected areas. You stopped the Prime Minister, the Parliament, and the President, in fact, from pushing that through. It seemed like a done deal to all of us. It wasn't. You made the difference. You've made the difference on protected areas like Stronja, hopefully also Vitosha. And it's important to note that those issues, it's not just about those individual protected areas, it's about the future of the natural resources that you have, how those decisions are made. So it's really about the future of how Bulgarian society works. Will decisions be made in the interests of a few connected individuals, or will they be made in the interests of society as a whole? Will decisions be made in the short-term interests of a few people, or the long-term interests of society as a whole? Those are basically the questions that you are facing. So when you go on the streets and you go on the internet, you're sending signals that are much bigger than just about those individual protected areas. So keep going. The job is not done yet. We had an advert for Earth Hour across the world. We switch off business lights at night. Imagine if we commit to zero net deforestation by 2020. Imagine if our world is 100% powered by renewables in 2050. We use the resources of one planet annually instead of the resources of 1.5, which we're currently doing. Imagine if we limit climate change to below 2 degrees Celsius. Those might seem like pie in the sky as something very out there. They're not. The top one has already happened in France. Several weeks ago, France passed legislation that business lights should be turned off after 1 a.m. That saves the annual emissions of 750,000 households, the equivalent. It also saves businesses money. Why can't we do that in other places as well? I already mentioned the case of Germany, which has decided to go off nuclear and to go renewables. This is already happening, it's already possible. And I challenge you to think about what is the imagine if for your country, for Bulgaria. What does it mean for your natural resources, for your protected areas? What does it mean for how decisions are made? What does it mean for where you get your energy from? What does it mean for the future economy that you want to live in? Robert Swan, the famous explorer, said the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. So it comes down to all of us. And Earth Hour was built for you. Earth Hour belongs to you. And so I very much encourage you to celebrate this wonderful planet that we live on. Join us for Earth Hour as this huge Mexican wave rolls out across the planet. And then also go beyond the hour. Take it way, way, way beyond the hour, because my future depends on it, and your future depends on it. Thank you very much.